What's up, Barbarians? I have a Shattered Vow, and I have tested it, and I have to say I am still disappointed. A Shattered Vow is just not that good. Even with 2 greater affects, and on the 2 most important skills on this weapon, I can clear Pit 83 with Shattered Vow, and also with my Rend 2.0 build. But my Rend 2.0 build just clears it slower. We roughly have 1 minute to 2 minutes left with Rend 2.0, and with the Shattered Vow, we have about 2 to 3 minutes. It is an increase, but for a Mythic Unique, it doesn't feel that mythic. I'm still going to show off Pit 83, but if you have the Shattered Vow, it may be worth scrapping. Our resistances are not capped, so we do have to use a potion and 2 incenses. Now everything's capped, we're ready to go. Alright. This plays identical to our Rend 2.0. Absolutely identical. You still need Rend, still need Rupture. Rupture is actually very important for the build. And it actually helps with executions. If you get rid of Rupture, it is slower. Which I found to be very disappointing. I think it would have been really cool to do a Rend-only build, but it's still not possible. Well, again, it's possible, but if you want the highest level of pit clear, you need Rupture. Is Shattered Vow best in slot? Yes. But is it really? Does it feel best in slot? Absolutely not. You know when you get the Grandfather and it really feels like you have a massive damage increase? Or you get the Ring of Starless Skies and that feels like a massive damage increase? You definitely don't get that when you have the Shattered Vow. So overall, I think it still needs a rework. And unfortunately, even though Rend did get a buff, it's still not that, it's still not enough. Right now I have 2 glyphs that are maxed out to level 100, and my last video I did pit 80, and now we're doing 83. That really doesn't feel good when after Rend gets a buff and it still doesn't do much for you. So overall, if you have all your glyphs maxed out at 100 and your gear is on par, I'm going to say this build will probably top out around 85. And because we're not really getting much in Season 7 for Bleed, well, I mean, we're getting a little bit in the sense of Earthquakes. I don't know. I think Bleed's at the bottom again. Which is kind of crappy. I think we need to find better ways to increase Gushing Wounds. You've increased Rend, you've increased Rupture. Blade Duration is in a decent spot. It's not meta and it's not the most powerful, but it can compete. And now I think it's just time to literally increase Gushing Wounds just to make it work. And I think it should actually scale with damage over time. I think it'd be really cool because right now we all know that bleeds can crit. So because of that, I think it'd be kind of cool just to make it scale damage over time and vulnerable damage. We also need to increase our hemorrhage node. The hemorrhage node is just... It's not where it needs to be. It needs to be higher. It needs to be capped at like 75 as a low. Even 100 would be perfect, really. If it could be capped at 100, I think that would be great. Then you just want to stack damage over time and vulnerable damage. Makes sense, I like it. But capping it at 45 and having Gushing Wounds nerfed, it doesn't feel good. That guy just healed. Did you see that? That was insane. So Shattered Vow will be best in slot, but it doesn't do the damage that I would like it to do. It doesn't feel mythic. It just literally feels like a mild upgrade instead of like, whoa, this is a mythic unique and it's going to change my build. It doesn't feel like that at all. And I think that's disappointing, because when you get the Grandfather, you're like, oh man. So when you get the Grandfather, you're like, oh man, this is really cool. And it does so much more damage. But when you have Shattered Vow, it's like, okay, let's see if this works. That's a problem. A mythic unique should not be like, let's see if this works for my damage over time build. It should be a no-brainer that it's going to be best in slot. I just realized I was playing and I don't have Grand Stomp on. I was showing something with Flay earlier. Testing something with Flay, and I left Flay on by accident. So for anyone who is wondering, Flay is not supposed to be there. That is supposed to be for Grand Stomp. So yeah, the Mythic Unique doesn't feel mythic. It is still best in slot, but it doesn't feel powerful. Doesn't feel like you really have a mythic unique there that's, you know, whoa, really changes the build. It really does more damage. Every time I play a build, and the first time I get the Ring of Starless Skies, it's like, oh man, I just got a massive bump. Or if you play an overpowered build, and then all of a sudden you get a Doombringer. You're like, holy crap, I have so much more life. This is so cool. And then you get the Grandfather, and then your crits are even higher. You know, then you stack them with the Banished Lords. It just keeps going. But then when you get the old Shattered Vow, and you go, will this work? Like, can I use this? Is this actually good? Then I think they need to reconsider. So my suggestion is, if you want to buff duration, that's great. You need to buff the duration more. You absolutely need to buff it a bare minimum to 60%. Even 70%, really. Because if you want this to feel like a mythic item, buff it to make it a mythic item. The Grandfather deals 100% multiplicative damage. So how come Shattered Vow can't do the same? How come we can't deal 100% increased duration? That would be amazing, and that would be best in slot, and that'd be a chase item for any damage over time build. And then you'd be like, whoa, this is so cool. My build is so much better now. But 44% doesn't cut it. I was hoping it was going to be good. I really was. I was pumped to give it a try. And I feel like I got really lucky with my Shattered Vow, where I have 2 greater affixes. One on damage over time, and the other one on life. Those are really the 2 best stats that you want on it. So yeah, it was definitely more disappointing when I realized that it still wasn't very good. Didn't feel very mythic. But it does get the job done. But instead of looking to farm for it, I suggest if you find it, and if you don't, that's okay. Bossing is a little bit better, but it feels pretty similar, to be honest. But Rupture, if you look at that, actually, next time we do a Rupture, I want you guys to take a look at it here. Okay, so we're gonna, actually after this, let's do a Rupture. Okay, so look at the health bar, and then we're gonna Rupture. It definitely took more health away. So I did notice with the increases of Rupture that they do, the increase of Rupture that they changed, definitely awesome. So with Wanton's Rupture, that's definitely going to be a good change. There could be a build there with the Fields of Crimson and like maybe a Rupture spam with the third blade. I'll have to give that a try. But yeah, Rupture is wicked. Like, look at that. It just, like, it takes chunks of health away. Okay, don't stand in poison. So overall, it doesn't feel mythic. And I think that's really sad, because you really want to get a mythic item that's really good. It feels good to get. This is not it. Still best in slot, but just doesn't feel best in slot. Alright, this guy's almost dead here. And even without our final Earthquake, which we're only getting about 4, because we don't have Ground Stomp, we're still doing great. Pit 83 cleared, and we had about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. If we had had Ground Stomp there, we probably would have shaved off a couple seconds instead of Flay. That was my mistake. But overall, I can clear Pit 83 with these weapons as well, and we just usually have about a minute left. That's why I said earlier, the Mythic Unique doesn't feel very mythic. And I almost have 1,000% of damage over time, and I definitely have a lot of life. This is probably one of the better rolled Shattered Vows, and the Masterworkings hitting on the greater affixes. It's hard to get better than that, really. Overall, if you get the Shattered Vow, I suggest to use it, because it is best in slot for Rend, but not by a significant margin. And that's why I think Shattered Vow still needs another rework. 44% damage over time. Honestly, bring it up to 100%. Make this the grandfather of bleed builds. That way, you would have a nice chase item for damage over time, and damage over time would have a better time competing with the other builds. In Season 7, with it going to be Season of the Hoda, what do you think Bleed's going to do compared to Hoda? And even if we had 100% damage over time duration, do you still think that this would be able to compete with Hoda? In my opinion, not even close. But this would make Bleed even better. So that's the reason why this weapon definitely needs a rework. It definitely needs more damage over time as well. It starts off with like 400%, and the greater affix it gave us like 600. It should have at least 600% damage over time. But this is my Rend 2.0 build, and the only change was that we are using the Shattered Vow, so we put chance to hit Rend on both of our weapons to get it as close to 100% as possible, which means we don't have any cut to the bone ranks. With this, I also tried using the Executioner Glyph with Shattered Vow and having it as a two-handed weapon and getting some cut to the bone ranks. We cleared Pit 82, but it was a struggle. We only had about 3 minutes left. Dual wield with the Magnum Opus is the only way to go. The one change I did make with my gear is I put on Limitless Rage instead of Conceited Aspect. If you have just the 2 legendary aspects, put Conceited on your gloves instead of Intercom. We have 0 changes in the skill tree from Rend 2.0, and 0 changes in the Paragon board from Rend 2.0. Everything is the same, and we have some glyphs that are actually max level here. Challenger and Ire. Wrath is 96, Ambidextrous is 92, and Rebel's level 90. You could use the Revenge glyph to squeeze out a little bit more damage, but if you do that, I wouldn't use Ground Stomp, and I wouldn't use Steel Grass stuns. With those two things stunning everything, this is going to blunt your Revenge glyph. Because of that, I'm using Ambidextrous instead. Overall, Shattered Vow is disappointing. It doesn't feel mythic, and I think it needs another rework. The enemies afflicted by more damage over time than remaining life are executed also doesn't work like it did in the PTR. If you remember the PTR of Season 6, when you had 51% of a bleed on an enemy, meaning they almost had half life, they would execute right away. If you bring that back and give the damage over time duration to 100% with a bump up to damage over time, this weapon would be absolutely amazing. Even though we have a higher bleed damage with an 18-second rend. If we go back to our Rend 2.0, we have the million less damage with 5 seconds less duration. That's huge, and we can still clear level 83. For Flay, I don't think it's going to be as good. I'm still going to test it, and if it comes out to be surprising, I will show it off. But from my last time testing it, I think 2 Flay Tempers are still going to be the best. Alright guys, so that was Rend 2.1. And if you have the Shattered Vow, it is best in slot just by a slight margin. Feel free to use it. If not, you're really not missing out. Make sure you have Ranks to Cut to the Bone masterworked, and also make sure your chance to rend is as close to 100% as possible. And if I find something good with Flay and Shattered Vow, I will definitely post it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.